go ahead and get started. So today is our Youth Apprenticeship Career Pathway Technical Assistance webinar. And we have Jim Potts, Tammy Stone with us. And so they can answer, we're going to work on this together so they can answer any of your questions. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today is making sure that the eligibility status is updated in Illinois WorkNet. We're going to talk about services and then worksite placement. So you can go ahead and turn it over to Tammy. And those that are just joining us, make sure you go ahead and check in with the polling questions. And if I cover it up before you get a chance to sign in, then I will make sure that we have it available at the end of the webinar as well. So I'll turn it over to you, Tammy.
Good morning, everybody. Please, if you have not signed in, as Natasha said, please click that your agency are participating. One of the things we want to make sure is that we have somebody from every agency participating in these webinars because we're sharing good information that you need to know related to the program. So if you haven't signed in, do it now. We'll pull that back up later on too, so if we have some people that join a little bit later that they can sign in. There's a couple things that we wanted to discuss today in the system itself. Jim Potts has been amazing, and he's been working with us on basically data validation and looking at the comparison between the IWDS system, which you guys don't work with, that's what your counterparts at the LWES work with, compared to the iWin system, which is the WorkNet system that you guys are actually entering the data on. And one of the things I want to be very clear is that everything needs to be initiated in the WorkNet system. So any new customers' applications need to be initiated in the WorkNet system, and then any services that are going to be provided to the customers need to be initiated in the WorkNet system. But one of the things that Natasha is going to show you here, the first thing is part of our data cleanup and validation is we have a lot of customers that are still in the inquiry status in both Illinois WorkNet and in IWDS. And we also have some customers that are sitting in Illinois WorkNet that aren't in IWDS at all. So they're just in that one system. So one of the things that we want you guys to do is to go into your customer base, and if they are not going to participate, we need for you guys to mark them. So Natasha's going to show you how to do that now.
Okay. Let me go ahead and move this up so you can have a better view of the screen. If you need a larger view, there's an icon on the upper corner, right corner of this pod that has 4 arrows pointing outwards. So you can click on that. That'll make it full screen. Click on it again, and it'll make it so that you can see the chat pod. Okay, so what I did, I went to my customer list. I selected a customer, and then I went to their suitability page. So first thing, you're defaulted to the application, so you can view that information, their suitability. We have the WIOA eligibility requirements, so whatever they had selected in their application would show here. You can review that information. We have the quick reference, so you can see, some quick reference. What are the things that are considered, what documentation sources are allowed, and then you can see references to policy, glossary, other different types of resources. That's all available to you. So you can review the WIOA eligibility. You can look at, so just to be clear, WIOA eligibility may be one of the reasons why they do or do not participate. You can look at their employment goals, and so when you review their employment goals, and how long that they're willing to stay in training or what they're willing to do. You can have that discussion with them. You can take a look at the available programs that they had matched up with because they met all the baseline requirements that are required for this particular program. And if they've decided that they want to participate, then you can go into the recommendations. So once you select a training program, then it'll go ahead and default to recommend for enrollment. If you have customers that are either not suitable, maybe that's because they don't meet the WIOA eligibility requirements, or it's just that they had no training programs that showed up because they didn't meet the baseline requirements, or they, once you started talking about the programs, they decided that, no, this isn't really something that I want to do. Or in this case, if you can't get a hold of them, you've, continuously reached out to them and they just, no contact, then you can select not suitable. The other item is to, maybe they just, or I guess let me go back to my not suitable. Maybe if they said that, they had training programs here, but they just didn't want to, then they could decline to participate. Or maybe they, would be interested, but they are declining to participate now. It's just not a good time for them. So there may be multiple reasons why they decline to participate. But regardless, we want them to have one of these three options: recommend for enrollment, not suitable, or decline to participate. And once you select that status and save it, then it'll record the date and time and who had entered that status.
And just to reiterate on that, if you do have customers that you have recommend for enrollment, but you haven't worked with them for a while, or they've just disappeared and they're not participating, you would need to move their status to not suitable or decline. So basically, the bottom line is all of your customers that you're working with and you're serving need to be marked as recommend for enrollment and enrolled in the training program in this. If you're not doing anything with these customers, if they're in your client database but you're not serving them, you need to mark them as either not suitable or chose not to participate. And the chose not to participate is if the customer themselves basically says, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do this at this time. Now, like Natasha said, you can mark them as do not want to participate, but then if they come back in a month or two and they want to participate, then you can just change that status and you can enroll them in the program. But we need all of your customers to have one of these three statuses checked in the system. So everybody that's in your system should have one of these three statuses.
Okay.
Natasha, do you have anything else on that?
I don't have anything in particular in this, but I just wanted to show that since we're right here, that if you don't have any training program information here, you have a person that came through and they, for whatever reason, didn't make any matches, you can click on the View Non-Recommended Training Programs, and you can see exactly why they didn't match up. In this case, it was based on the industry that they had selected in their application, or they didn't meet the drug test requirement. So if you have a person that is still in the inquiring status, I'm not sure what this particular person is, then you can go back into their information, and if you needed to change the career area because maybe they didn't understand or they only selected one instead of three, you could update this section. Or maybe they looked at the drug test question and they didn't realize that they you could take a look at the drug test information and say, is this what you meant to put? Again, we want to make sure that they're truthful about the information, but maybe they just misunderstood it or were afraid to answer the question for whatever reason. Just know that while they're in that inquiry status, you can update this information in their application. And when you do that, then it will impact the training program because it's going to look at those baseline requirements again to make sure, that's recommending the appropriate program.
And Natasha, Devin has a comment on here. It says, on the recommendation section, I get an error and cannot select an option to decline or select not suitable.
Yeah,
Okay.
I responded to him.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so you can either enter the WorkNet ID, not the person's name, but their WorkNet ID, or you can send it to me after either way. You can email it or put it in there. And then we can take a look at that particular person. If it's happening to a large number of people, then, definitely we need to take a look at, we need to know that as well.
Are there any other questions related to this action that needs to be done with your customers? And this will greatly help us, too, when we're looking at, because this is a partnership with your LWIAs. And so if we have customers that are sitting in the inquirence section in IWDS, we're questioning them. And we don't know if that's because the LWIA needs to do their work and get them registered, or if maybe they're sitting there and they're not going to be served. So having this marked identifies that for us so that we can, finish cleaning up our data in the systems. Okay, and if you have any good questions, please, include them in the chat pod. But we are going to go ahead and move on to the next section. And what we want to talk about on this call, too, is we're doing, I think, a decent job of getting the data cleaned up in the system and eligibility concerns that we had originally, trying to address all of those. Now, the next big part is services and documenting services. All of the services need to be initiated in Illinois WorkNet. So Natasha's going to walk through this again of how you add services to a customer and then how that process works so it gets into the IWDS system.
Okay. Well, one of the first things that you need to do, especially if you're not the person that is entering the information into IWDS, this is a really important thing. You need to make sure that you have your contacts identified for each person. So you can have as many as you want to. You just need to have, at least one, or if you're not the LWIA entering it into IWDS, you need to have a minimum of 2. So you can have yourself, and then you would want a person that has this little LWIA designation behind them, because that's how we know who to send the information to. We have, quite a few people identified as, LWIAs, career planners that can enter information, but we don't want to send the world of everything to all of the career planners. We really want to send it to the ones that you're working with, are familiar with the information, and, try to minimize the overlap is what we want to do. So you can go ahead and add your contacts. In the area up here, you just select a person and then hit Update Contacts. I think I already have that one, but Update Contacts, and then it's added to the list. And you can easily remove the contact as well. You'll be able to see when they were scheduled for their appointment. Again, we have their information that has come in from IWDS. So we need to make sure that the application, the services that you are providing are after the application date. I'm not sure if we still have people, we can talk about that in a few moments, that are still in the data lag catch-up phase. But I think Jim and Tammy and company have been working closely with you so that you know the process for, the steps that need to occur to make sure that we get all that data updated and caught up. But and I just want to point out the enrollment and employment information, you can see if the person has been marked as an inquirant, applicant, or registrant. And if they're an inquirant, it means that their application in IWDS hasn't been certified. So that needs to happen so that the services can be entered in. And then you can see their application date and their status, employment information from IWDS. Again, you can take a look at their goals. You can see which area that they're entered in. If they have, let's say you have a machining tier 1 and machining tier 2, you can set the start and end program date. So maybe they're going to start machining tier 1, January 15th, and they're going to end, March 15th, and then they're going to start tier 2 April 1st and end whenever. You can set those start and end dates in this area. And then you can see their the information that they have entered in as the credentials that they have, their employment history that has been entered into the system. You can look at their Employment 101 information, what they have in there, and you can take a look at the goals that they have set, because you're going to use all of this information when putting together their list of services that are required. So you can see what their goals are, you have a discussion with them. Whenever you want to, if you need to update this information based on your conversation with them, you can easily update that area. Minimize that. You can look at their barriers. So whatever barriers that they have identified in the application, you can use this as a discussion point, to talk to them about the different types of barriers that they might have. You can say, well, he didn't select financial issues, but, during our conversation, you said that you did, and you can identify a few more areas where they might need some financial assistance. So you can update the barriers. Again, you're going to use that information to identify the different services that it's going to be needed for this person. Now, when you start out, you want to go ahead and enter in the services for the customer. None of these are going to go to IWDS directly, and what you need to do is go ahead and, based on their goals, based on, the training program that they're going to go into, based on the barriers, work with them to put together a planned list of services. So you can go ahead and when you add a service, you can select a service type. You can say, is it going to be paid with WIOA funds? If yes, select yes. You can select maybe do job search skills training. You're going to say it's not started yet, and then you can enter the various dates, start dates, due dates, and approximately how much time they're going to spend each week for those items, and then you can type in notes and save that information. So that's going to be added to this ongoing list. And as long as you have it as not started, again, what you're doing is creating a plan for them. So you would have all those planned services available in the progress page. Now your customer has a view of this page as well. So this is, the approach that we're taking, a good approach, so that they know that, okay, during the first week, I'm going to do job search skills, and then I'm going to start on mentoring, and then, I'm going to look at labor market information, whatever the case may be. Obviously, I don't have these in order, and this is a test person. So I can have as many services as necessary or needed in this plan, and they can be, filtered by the start dates and dates, their current status. Now, I mentioned that these services are not sent, they don't automatically populate IWDS. We can't do that for staff-assisted services. Those need to be entered in by a career planner into IWDS. So what's going to happen is you can see that we have the source that says not requested. That means that I have not requested for this information to be entered into IWDS. So when I click on this, as long as it's a WIOA funded the service is paid with WIOA funds. Once I change the status to started or open, it's going to tell me that this information needs to be entered through IWDS, and then I can submit this to the career planner. So then you'll notice that we still have the information. I can update notes, and then I can submit the request. Once I do that, it says request sent. So what's going to happen next is for all the people that you had identified up here in this contact and appointment information, anyone that's the ELWIA career planner, once you submit the request, it's going to, it's going to create a summary. And once a day, it's going to send that summary to that ELWIA career planner that says, hey, this person, what's his name, Walter Apprenticeship, has just been provided some job search skills training, and it started on January 2nd. And so it provides the information that they need initially to go ahead and enter that information into IWDS. Once they do that, once they update IWDS, there is a sync that happens at nighttime. And what it's going to look at, it's going to look for Walter Apprenticeship. It's going to look for job search skills and training. And it's going to look for the start date of 1/2/2018. And when it sees those three pieces of information, it's going to say, oh, I have a match. And so once that happens, then it's going to change this source to IWDS, so that way you know that that information has been entered into IWDS. And now, anytime after that sync occurs, you can continue to submit a change to that request, because then once you have it open, then you want to complete. You can say successful completion. You can put the complete date, and then you can submit that request. And again, then the career planner will receive that notification that this person has completed their job search skills training, and they can update that information in IWDS. And once it's updated in IWDS, then you can see that service is updated with this line item. Okay. Good point. I see your comment here, Courtney. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So the other area is that you look at this and you're like, oh, well, darn, I entered in job skills training, and now it's a duplicate, but I really didn't mean to enter this one. As long as this is not from IWDS, you can make the updates to it, and you can remove that particular service. Okay, so as long as it doesn't say IWDS, you can remove that service, make updates, change the plan, whatever you need to do to this area within LMyWorkNet. I'll show you this example. Let's just say that you have, some other service that you're paying for with, some other funds other than the WIOA fund. If you choose no, then you can put in whatever the service is and into LMyWorkNet, and it's not going to submit a request to the ELWIA Career Planner. Since it's not using the WIOA funds, it would just stay here in the list of services. Once the credentials are entered into IWDS, so you can, let's just say that there's a credential associated with this, you can enter service provider information. You can enter credentials earned. So if you earned your certificate, you could type in what it is and submit that request to the career planner. And once they have submitted that information, you'll see that this request was sent. And once it's entered into IWDS, then you'll see that the source changes to IWDS. Okay.
And this is critical that you enter this information because this is where we're getting reports for our management to identify what credentials are being earned and how many in time, by organizations and everything. So it's very critical that when they're earning credentials that you update this information and also update the information as far as who the actual training provider is. So who is the one that is actually offering the training services. So when you're doing your services, please don't overlook this. This needs to be completed also.
Okay, I will come back to Courtney's question, but this one looks like it's directly related to the services like what we're talking about now. So what if the agency that is handling Illinois WorkNet is also the LWIA case manager for the program and can enter the services directly into IWS directly? Okay, if the service is added, the IWS will upload the Illinois WorkNet, or do we have to double add services? Okay, so you do not have to double add services. What we need you to do is, because the customer has a view of this page, when they log in, they can see a read-only view of this page. And so we still would want you to say, job search, skills training, and you can have it as, Walter Apprenticeship, job search skills training 1/2/2018. You can have them all as, planned start, planned end dates, and all of these as not started. So that whenever and then once you do that, because that's communicating the planned services to the customer, then what you can do is then from that point on, you can just update the information directly into IWDS. Because once it has that sync, between Walter, job search skills, and start date, it's going to continue to update this line item. So you don't have to send yourself a request. It's just that we ask you to put it into Illinois WorkNet the first time so they can see the overall plan. And then as you update the information into IWDS, it's going to sync at night and update the services in Illinois WorkNet. If you need the sync, let's say you made an update in IWDS, but you're going to meet with the customer in an hour or 15 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever the case may be, and you need that sync to happen right away, then you can do sync with IWDS, and it's going to sync this individual as opposed to trying to get the whole gamut of people all at one time. That's why we do the whole big sync at nighttime, and then but you can sync individually. Okay, can you clarify what steps to take to add the career planner to the service in Illinois WorkNet? Okay, hold on. Let's finish. So let's stay on the Lisa track and we'll go back to the other ones. So to clarify, we can add the services in Illinois WorkNet and then sync and then finish the enrollment in IWDS. I just want to just to be clear, I think what you're saying is, we want you to go through the process of going through, when you talk about enrollment, I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing, because we have the suitability, which recommends them for enrollment, and then once they have a certified application, then they are considered enrolled, because they have to be in IWDS to be enrolled in the program. And so we want them to be the applicant / registrant. Well, once you add the service, then they're a registrant. So but what we want to do is make sure that you add the services. So you can add these services, I guess, really at any time. I'm talking about adding the service as an IWDS, which makes it a registrant. Yes. Oh, here, wait a minute. Jim, go ahead and, because I'm not 100% sure
I think the big thing to realize is WorkNet is where you have to make the plan. It's kind of like your ISS, Lisa, where you're recording what's going to happen, and then the service. So you guys are in a different situation because you're able to build the plan in WorkNet and then go directly and document in IWDS. But because you kind of said, do I have to do it twice? And in a sense, yes, because you're building the plan in WorkNet. But then you'll just go ahead and document that service, so every time you need an update to that service, you don't have to duplicate doing it. But you're going to have the original service, the plan service in WorkNet. Does that make sense?
And Natasha, this is Tammy. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, ultimately, what you want to do with these customers, and we do have a step, and correct me if I'm wrong on this too, it's an ISS step, so it's individual service plan step that is now available to you to add as a service because all youth have to have an ISS. So you can add that as actually a service, and that should probably be one of the first things you add. But you also need to incorporate, with that, you need to add the services that you're going to be providing. So you just can't have an ISS standing alone. You have to also explain what are you going to be doing for this customer. So, and so in the beginning, if you know that you're going to be doing job search, if you know you're going to be doing mentoring, if you know that they're going to be in paid work experience and they're going to be some academic component, you can populate this with all of the planned activities. And then when they start is when you can open them. So you do the start date. And when you add the start date is when you request it to be synced to IWDS. So that way, you know, you're not sending, am I right on that, Natasha? We're not sending a lot of stuff to IWDS that may never be started.
Well, what they would do is create, like Jen said, create the plan in LMI WorkNet, which is what you're seeing on the screen, would be the plan. And then basically you just did this. So the very first step or very first service that you would add in IWDS is the ISS, and that would switch them over to registrant, I believe. And then, you know, as you have completed these other steps, then, you know, then you just update them in IWDS, and it'll automatically sync LMI WorkNet and update it with the information from IWDS. I think we're all on the same page now.
Yeah.
I see Lisa and Jim are typing. So let me go back up to some of these other questions. Okay, Courtney, I'm not forgetting about you, but let me go to this other question before we stray away from this other question. Okay, so the question was, can you clarify what steps to take to add the career planner to the service in LMI WorkNet? Yes. So this will look a little goofy because I'm in test, and so all my account numbers, all my accounts look like weird names. But to make sure, let's say that Tammy Stone is the career planner, I would go up to my contacts section for that person, hit select, and I'd look for, you know, Tammy Stone. Let's pretend that 13 is Tammy Stone, and then hit update. The way that you're going to be able to say, you know, if I'm not 100% sure, hopefully you know which people already are your career planners that you're going to be working with. But if you're still not 100% sure, the career planners that have access to IWDS, those are the ones that are going to be receiving the notifications. Not everybody's going to receive the notifications, just the career planners will have this ELWIA after their name. So you'll see that. And if you want to see all the contacts that have been added, you can see a list of those contacts. Okay, does that answer your question? Okay. And then so we have another question, which is, hold on, let me find it here. I'm wondering if a customer withdraws from the program, how do we remove them or document this? So, very good point. One of the areas that I am working with the Commerce team to identify is in this enrollment and employment information. I don't know if it's going to be here or if it's going to be another status someplace else in here. Then we need to add a section, or we're going to need to add it here. I'm not 100% sure, with all the different reasons, like completion reasons. So either it was successfully completed and all these wonderful things happened, or they withdrew from the program, or unsuccessfully completed. So we still need to add that section to the progress page. But in the meantime, what I would say is that we have this case note feature that's up at the top. You can add it from this page. You can add it from the case notes. It doesn't really matter. You can click on Add Case Note, and you can say, customer, withdrew, something like that. And then you can put, reason for this. And then you can send this as a message and an email. That's what I would do. And then you can identify who should receive this. So if you're looking, if you're working, you want to send a message to the career planner. Let's say that train partner 11 is the AWEA career planner. Then you can say, this customer withdrew from the program because they moved to, a different state for whatever reason. When you do that, you click Add a Case Note. What it's going to do is save this as a case note, and then also, so you'll see it. You can see it on this page. Whenever you go to case notes, you can say, see the reason, the actual case note. And what happens is this also populates IWDS. So whenever you sent that case note and you said to send it as a message and an email, it's going to save it as a case note, and it's going to send a message and an email to whoever you selected from that list. And it's going to populate IWDS as a case note. And then they can move forward with that. Now, as far as any other really specific things that need to happen in IWDS, I'd have to ask Jim if he needed. Had anything to add to that, but with regards to specifically in IWDS?
And I'm not 100% sure what you want from me, Natasha.
No, I mean, I'd say most, I guess, I don't know what the steps are. I guess they would exit a person. If Methodist College said that, Natasha withdrew from this program because she moved to Texas.
Well, no, what they'll have to do is because the person had been served, so they'd close out the services, whatever, if they didn't complete, let's say they started, the training and dropped out, then whenever the date of dropout, they would mark that client as unsuccessful of that service. So that's the steps to start with. And then once a person is not served for at least 90 days, that's when they end up going on, they get exited. But the first step when they drop out would be to close their services.
So I guess the other, you could just send the message to the AWEA career planner, or, if you wanted to, I guess then the other step that they could do if they wanted to is to come into each of these and mark them as unsuccessful completion. And then that would send a summary to the AWEA career planner as well.
Yeah, and I know I'm pretty sure with the Methodist folks, they're also co-enrolled with the local area. So they should be involved in this whole step, I would think, for the Methodist clients. But any of them, if they started a service and they drop out, they still had started that service. So that's the reason why it still has to be recorded appropriately. Now, if they didn't ever get to the point of going to services, that's a different animal too. So we kind of need to know the specifics of the circumstance of how it is. So if it's somebody that had began services and dropped out, it's one thing. If somebody never even began, then we would want to deal with that, of course, differently.
But either way, they could send a case note to the OWIA career planner to just inform them, then make a case note that something has occurred, and then they just need to take additional steps to remove that person.
Yeah, because what happened, I mean, there's a bunch of steps. If the person's co-enrolled, that local area is familiar with this, and they have to take steps also. But as far as if it's just somebody that's just registered through Career Connect, yeah, you could, the case note saying close the services, and then that would take care of closing that person's services out. And then they don't exit immediately at that time. It's a period of not having services. That's what is going to determine the exit.
Okay. Hope that answers Courtney's question. Okay. All right. Good deal. Okay, so I don't know, Tammy, if you want to talk about worksite placement at all.
Let's just kind of skim over it. We are kind of getting close to our time. If you do have customers that are placed in worksite placement, they need to also be included in the system. So Natasha's going to go over this just so you're familiar with it, and then we can do a more in-depth webinar on this one on another day. But we do want to make sure that this is being documented also. So Natasha, you want to kind of walk through what they need to do for that?
Okay. At the top of your screen, you'll see this little icon, and it's for worksite placement. And so for worksite placement, you can select, in this case I have multiple agencies, but it should default to what you already have, whoever you're currently with. You can filter your worksite. This is the overview page, so you can filter these down to just see these particular options that are available to identify the different types of worksite placement within the system. But one of your very first steps is you're going to add an employer, so you can use new or existing employers. You can create a new worksite, so if they have existing worksite, you can choose the existing worksite or add a new worksite. You can enter in the job title. You can look up stock codes for specific job titles. If you don't know it, can't find it, you can just do a blind search, and it'll populate the next line, which is the title. But as many people know, sometimes it might be the stock code that you need to use, but the title isn't exactly what is the exact title of the worksite placement. So you can update that as needed. You can type in the description, identify the employment type. So I don't know, do you Tammy, Jim, are most of these going to be work experience or internships, or how do you want, or on-the-job training?
Those are all various services that could be, so it's whatever appropriate, whatever it actually is.
Okay. So you can enter an hourly rate, or you could just say that it's an unpaid work experience. If an employer has, or worksite has, whatever number of openings, and then you can, you'll have your listing of your job sites there. If I want to add a customer to this, I just click on Add a Customer, I talk, and you just pick the person's name. You can say, is this full-time or part-time? You can say, has it been started? You can add the start date, and that person has been added. So you can see your total number of openings. Once I add a person, and it's going to, it's going to, use up one of those openings that I have, and it's going to move them over to one of these full-time or part-time positions. and you can see who has been assigned to each of these sites. So that's the overall gist of getting them into the system. Once we have people that are starting to get into the system, we can have another webinar and we can talk about payroll upload and how that's used. We can have that on another webinar, but there are also instructions that are available in the Youth Apprenticeship Career Pathway Partner Guide that do cover the worksite placement module. And then Tammy, you might want to look at the
Courtney?
question.
Yeah, Courtney, for if the work experience is being paid for out of the apprenticeship grant, we would want you to upload the payroll. And that's a really easy process, but we would definitely, if it's being paid out of the grant, we would like to see that uploaded. And Natasha, you want to just kind of walk through that assessment? We can, like I said, we can go into more depth on this on another webinar, but she can walk through that payroll upload. Basically, what it is, it's a spreadsheet that you can download and enter information. So she's going to show you right now.
Yep. So I clicked on the payroll tab, and I'm going to click Add Payroll. I'm going to put in a date range here. And then I'm going to download my payroll template. Oh, there we go. And so it populates with, you want to use this, this area because it already has like the job ID and the work night ID, so it makes that connection between the person and the job placement. And so it gives you, you know, the person's information to identify them, first name, last four of their SSN, and then it identifies the payroll period. And so you can just say that, you know, they worked 5 hours that week, and it's going to pull in whatever wages that you said that they had. So whatever we entered in whenever we added them to the work site, it's going to pull in that wage information. If for whatever reason it's not correct, you know, you can change it. Just, you know, we ask that you would also change that up into, you know, in the system as well. So that's really all you do is you add in the number of hours worked for those people and then save that information, and then you would just upload the payroll template, you know, navigate to it and upload it, and it'll provide a listing. You know, it'll do a quick check to make sure if there's any errors or not. You can upload additional files if you had, you know, other related files, whatever those may be. And then once all that information is good, then you can submit it for request, and then that will allow Commerce to review that information and then approve those payroll uploads. Okay. So also, do we need to record stipends? Yes. Okay. So Tammy, was the yes towards the stipend comment, or was that?
No, that was for Matricon, that I'll check
Okay.
their information. No, stipends would not be recorded in this area, but that's something that, you know, obviously you keep internally in your fiscal systems, and it needs to be documented in your customer files. So anytime you're providing stipends, you need to have accountability of what you're providing, why you're providing it.
But that could be this other, could they take that, whatever they have as their documentation and upload it?
Yeah,
they
most
upload
definitely.
This other, whatever, that would be the other related files I couldn't think of an example for.
Yeah, so if you want to keep the documentation and, you know, in this, you can most definitely do that. You can upload that as an other file, but it's not going to be through this payroll process. But you can definitely upload that information to the customer file.
And the stipend's an activity that should be recorded in IWDS too. So.
Okay.
Correct, and that would be a service that would be added through WorkNet again. I believe that's an activity they can add in WorkNet.
Right, they make a plan for it, and then they
Right.
get documented in IWS.
Right. And then you can also, as a matter of fact, you could, and Natasha, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you can add that dollar amount to that activity. So if you're providing a stipend, when you add that activity, you can provide the dollar amount of what's being provided with that also. Like I said, just make sure all of your your fiscal records and everything, correlate.
Take this one right here.
There we go.
Minimum. Right here. We had it in one. We can add it back. I don't think it was added to this one, but we could still add it. I mean, in the meantime, you could add the notes, but we can add that cash, what we have for a different program. We can add that into here.
Yeah, so in the meantime, like she said, just put it in the notes, and then they will add that dollar value that's associated with that service to that. But that's probably the best place to do that, as opposed to maybe even doing an upload. If it's documented there, that's a good way of doing it. Any other questions? Is there anything we've missed on this one? As far as OJT, we had, if you're paid by the employer for OJT, do we need to record that? Once again, you can record that in the service area as an OJT. I guess my question would be, is the grant paying a portion of that OJT? Is it like a 50-50 for that? And honestly, I would have to get back with you if we wanted OJT part of that paid work experience upload. But you definitely document it under the service side. Natasha, in other grants, have you guys done any payroll uploads for OJTs, like in the ADAM grant? Do you know offhand?
I don't think so.
Okay. We'll follow up on that question. I'm not sure if we want to, mix the OJTs in with the paid work experience.
But we will be updating the worksite placement module so you can identify details on subsidized versus unsubsidized worksite placement.
Which will be good too, yeah. So like when it showed you how to add the employers, you can go ahead and align a customer with an employer. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do the payroll upload for that. But you can add employers into this and then align the customers, and we want you to do that, align the customers with the employers. So we have visual of where your customers are as far as the work experience side goes.
Any other questions?
I think we covered a lot. If you have any questions, please, you need to reach out to us, especially dealing with the system. Natasha's obviously our guru on this and our best resource for if you have any technical questions on how to add information. If there's any questions regarding any policies or procedures or eligibility, Jim's our eligibility guru. You can reach out to me, and if there's anything I can't answer on the policy side, I will definitely get the answer for you guys. So does anybody have any other questions? By a show of hands, one of the things we have discussed in here is case notes and doing really good case notes, because a case note should you should be able to understand and it should read like a book of what's happening with this customer. By a show of hands, is anybody interested if we offer maybe one of these webinars for some training on case notes? Would you be interested? Okay. We have a few interested, so that might be something we'll entertain in the future. And if there's any specific training opportunity you guys would be interested in dealing with apprenticeship programs or career pathway programs, let us know that too, because part of what we want to do, like in the community service and also just in our general webinars, if we can offer training that's going to assist, we want to know what that is and bring it to you. Okay, as Natasha said, if you haven't checked in, please do so. We want to make sure we're capturing everybody. This is, I'm sure you guys received an email from Tara regarding, that we really want everybody's presence on these webinars as we're going through because we're providing a lot of technical assistance on these. Jim, Natasha, you guys have anything else to add?
I just did want to highlight a couple of things. Stephanie from down in LWIA 25 just said she didn't need or wanted to attend case noting. She is doing an exceptional job case noting, so I noted on there that she might be somebody we might get to proctor such a session. So Stephanie, good job, and there's Bianca in LWIA 15 is doing an unbelievable job, but case notes is lacking. So if you're not recording the case notes on your folks, you need to make sure that you do that, because that lets us get a visual of really what's going on versus just seeing maybe nothing or just a service. So make sure you're utilizing the functions. And you can case note in WorkNet and it gets carried over to IWDS. And for those that are working in IWDS, the notes get carried over from IWDS to WorkNet. So it's really important to do that.
I think that's a great idea, Stephanie. We might take, use your resources and take you up on that, and Bianca also. And Jim, maybe what we should do on that particular one is also invite the LWIAs to participate so they are both on the same page.
Yep, of course.
Since both sides are going to be case noting.
In that case, in both cases I'm speaking about, both Stephanie and Bianca are at the LWIA level, so that's who's doing both. They're just noted as doing exceptional jobs.
Good deal. Well, we're going to start.